Let us continue our discussion on human health and disease. The topic that we are going to discuss today is cancer. The first point to understand is that what exactly is meant by cancer. So it is an uncontrolled, non-regulated, excessive proliferation of cells. So there are so many adjectives that I am using. Uncontrolled, then I am saying non-regulated, though I am saying proliferation, again I am saying excessive proliferation of cell would be called as a cancer. Now, what is meant by this? We say that cell division is actually a highly regulated process. So even in animals where the growth stops after a certain age, you have read your NCERT that cell division does take place. It replaces the lost cells, say for example epithelial cells, say for example RBCs. All these things are formed in large number continually in the human body, but it is according to demand and supply. What the amount of cell division actually corresponds to the requirement of the body. So this is what is called as a controlled and a regulated type of proliferation of cell. But if something goes wrong with the cell cycle, the regulation of the cell cycle, it can lead to an excessive proliferation of cell, and that will lead to cancer. So we know about the regulation of the cell cycle. You must have seen my video on cell cycle and cell division, where I have told you that if a cell has a faulty DNA, normally it will not be allowed to divide, and a program will start what is called as apoptosis, and the cell will actually normally die. But that doesn't happen in the cases of the cancerous cell. In spite of carrying faulty DNA, they keep on dividing, producing the daughter cells that inherit the faulty DNA, and that creates the basic problem. So this is what is meant by cancer. One more point to understand in the beginning is that any cell of the body can actually become cancerous. Now that means it can happen, it can affect any part of the body, and any cancer of epithelium origin is called as carcinoma. A cancer that originates from the mesodermal tissue is called as sarcoma. WBCs, they get excessive proliferative, it leads to a blood cancer which is called as leukemia. Lymphoid tissue, the cancer is called as lymphoma, and the melanocytes can also excessively proliferate, that would be called as melanoma. So these are the basic types of cancer that are seen in human body. So after understanding this, let us look at the properties of a cancerous cell. So now we will be looking at the properties of cancerous cell. Number one, a cancerous cell is virtually immortal. So it is virtually immortal. So what does it mean? That means the apoptosis that I just now mentioned does not function in the cancerous cell. So in spite of having faulty DNA, they are not stopped and they continue to divide. Obviously, the cell will die with the death of the organism, that is a separate issue, but otherwise they keep on dividing. That is why I am saying that they are virtually immortal. Then there is a problem in their differentiation. So they may be very poorly differentiated, or they may be undifferentiated, and you will learn in higher classes in some cases they may be actually wrongly differentiated. Now just to give you an example explaining this point, a person with leukemia would have large number of WBCs, and if we go by this logic that WBCs are associated with immunity, which means that leukemia with large number of WBCs, should they have large immunity or they should be super immune? It is not the case. So that means the number of the cell is very high, but they are not able to function. That is the problem with cancer. Another problem with cancer. The third problem is that the third characteristic, it is not a problem, is that they are actually easily killed by radiation, because they are continually dividing. You can understand, you know about the first trimester of the pregnancy, the pregnant lady should not be exposed to mutagens like X-rays, etc., you know, and therefore we are saying, because they are also continually and rapidly dividing, the DNA is continuously replicating in a sort of way, and therefore they are easily killed by radiation. The fourth thing would be that they deprive normal cells of their nutrition. So this is one of the very important reason why cancer kills. So that means the normal cells are deprived of their nutrients or nutrition because they are continually dividing. They consume lot of nutrients and therefore the nutrients are not available in sufficient amount for the normal cell, and that creates additional problem in a patient suffering from cancer. A very important property of a cancerous cell will be that they do not exhibit or show the property which is called as contact inhibition. Now this is a very important thing to understand. So they do not exhibit the property of contact inhibition. So let us take an organ. So let us say this organ has all the animal tissue. So this is epithelium, this is connective, this is muscle, this is nerve. And let us say that an epithelium cell actually starts proliferating, it starts dividing. Whenever this cell will come in contact with the another tissue, it will stop dividing. This is the normal cell. So when a cell comes in the contact with another tissue, it actually inhibits division, and this is called as contact inhibition. This property is not present in cancerous cell, which means that this cell will actually invade into the connective tissue, for example. And this thing that they do not show contact inhibition and therefore spread, this is called as metastasis. So this thing is called as metastasis, and please remember this, that this metastasis is why the cancer is dreaded. It spreads. So what can happen is that this cancerous cell can actually enter into the connective tissue, can go through the lymphatics and the blood vessel and reach in the distant parts of the body and form secondaries there. So this is why cancer is dreaded, and this property is called as metastasis. So if a cell starts to growing, it will form a mass of cell that would be called as tumor. Tumors are of two types. One would be called as a benign tumor and the other would be called as a malignant tumor. The differentiation is the property of the metastasis. Benign tumors do not show metastasis. Metastasis is shown only by malignant tumors, and therefore the malignant tumors are the tumors which should be called as cancers. So I am again having an important term here, that only malignant tumors must be called as cancers. So just look at the screen. These are some very important properties of the cancerous cell, and this is the property that they usually ask in the entrance. Please remember the meaning of metastasis and what is a malignant tumor. I hope all these things are now absolutely clear. Now, as I told you that there is a problem in cell division in the causation of the cancer. So we would say that cancer is essentially a genetic disease. Mind you, I am not saying that it is a hereditary disease. I am saying it is a genetic disease. It is caused by multiple mutational events. So cancer is a genetic disease caused by multiple mutational events, and these mutations can be in the gene, a normal gene that is responsible for the division of the cell. This gene that is normally present in our genome is called as a proto-oncogene, and if it gets mutated, it can get converted into an oncogene. So this would be called as an oncogenic transformation, and then it can lead to the cancerous growth in the cell. So there is another gene in which the mutation can result in the causing of cancer. This gene is called as a tumor suppressor gene. So tumor suppressor gene normally keeps this gene in check, and you can understand that any mutation in a proto-oncogene or a tumor suppressor gene can actually lead to a development of the cancer. This oncogene can actually be delivered to the cell by some viruses. So viral infections, few of them are also associated with development of cancer, and the genes that these viruses will be carrying are called as the viral oncogenes or VONC. And the viruses that we are talking about is hepatitis B virus. Obviously it can lead to liver cancer. There can be human papilloma virus. Try to remember this can cause cancer of cervix in females, and similarly there is another which is called as Epstein-Barr virus. It can cause a type of lymphoma in children. So this is what This is what I am giving you some examples where viral infections can actually lead to development of cancer. And there are other reasons as well. There the ends of the chromosomes are called as telomeres, and when the cell continues to divide, the length of telomere actually gets smaller and smaller, and when the length of the overall length of the chromosome gets to a critical limit, which is called as Hayflick limit, the cell doesn't divide further, and actually it undergoes apoptosis and dies. But some cells have an abnormal presence of an excess, so that means an excess abnormal presence of an enzyme which is called as telomerase. This telomerase is a ribonucleoprotein, and this telomerase doesn't allow or maintains the telomere, doesn't allow the telomeres to get shortened with successive cell division, and the cell keeps on dividing. So there would be another problem that can be because of telomerase. And these are some very important causes of cancer, and you have understood that this is basically a mutation, and the radiation, the ionizing radiations and the non-ionizing radiation. So if we look at a non-ionizing radiation like UV rays, they lead to the formation of thymine dimer. So when the UV rays they fall on DNA, it leads to the formation of thymine dimer. That means two thymine bases, they actually join together to form a dimer, and when your body try to excise and repair them, then there is a problem that it can lead to an abnormal repair process, and which can cause actually cancer. So this is how some patients who are having a skin condition which is called as xeroderma pigmentosum, if they are exposed to UV radiations, are more prone to develop the skin cancer. So that means we are looking at radiations as the cause of cancers, and we are talking about both ionizing radiations as well as non-ionizing radiations. So I hope this thing is now absolutely clear. Please try to remember UV rays and the thymine dimer formation.